Every time you open the news, you see the same information that I do. Inflation is up, rising costs, and people unable to afford their bills. But it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, many people end up better after a recession. How do they do it? What is it all about? Today, I'm going to talk about why it is essential to prepare immediately. And when I mean preparation, this isn't necessarily growing a garden or having solar panels. If you're interested in that information, I do have that in my books as well as the playlists here on my channel. But I'm talking about business, I'm talking about income, and I'm talking about investments. The second thing I want to look at is, of course, what I have done. And I'll show you why that's important, okay? The third is what you need to do immediately. This information here is something that I've written down, I've organized in my thoughts right now, and I will flip back and forth. So let's begin. Why prepare? If we rely on one source of income, we will be in big trouble. If the economy does poorly in our area, if jobs become more scarce, we need to have skills not only to withstand a downturn, but end up better off on the other side. And this isn't something that you hear of typically, right? You know that most people, they just can't make ends meet. Most people end up a little bit worse off at the least because higher borrowing costs, higher interest rates, and they get themselves into a bind. But what I want to talk about here is that if you, the individual, you have one source of income, you lose that one source of income, then what do? You try to find another job. And during that period of time, maybe you need to use some sort of government assistance. Maybe you find things that are alternative source of income, okay? But this isn't the way that it should be. We should have our own path already forged for us. So let's take a look further. We need to create a secondary source of income, not to improve our lifestyle, but as a survival mechanism. Inflation is going wild, and even if incomes rise, they generally don't catch up to the inflation rate. And this is what many people deal with, okay? Now let me talk about my quick story. Okay, I became an entrepreneur in 2011, and I've had side jobs years before that. I knew that I had to create more income if I wanted to be able to live a decent standard of living as costs were rising. I had absolutely nobody around me that was successful, nobody to be mentored by. Okay? I didn't have anything, nothing was given to me whatsoever. I read as many books as I could find and listened to audiobooks every free second that I had on various subjects. I asked anybody I could questions about everything. A voracious appetite for knowledge on all subjects. I became addicted to learning. Okay, Friday night, Saturday night, I wasn't partying. I didn't do that. I wanted to learn. I was obsessed. I was obsessed with exercise, and I was obsessed with learning. These things here were just incredible to me because it just started to be something. It wasn't about school. It wasn't about learning, economics texts. I was getting into the nitty-gritty. I was learning how to do this for myself. And this is where I wanted to show you something. Take a look. Here we have the wins and losses. The income that I produced was saved and invested into assets. I saved almost the entirety of my income being frugal as I could, and working literally 3 jobs/businesses. Now, I don't necessarily recommend people working 3 jobs, 4 jobs, and many more, but this is the time that, especially when you're younger, that you can push that effort. You can do these things, and especially if you don't have any family obligations to things, that it makes it a lot easier. Now, of course, you get to a certain age or you have other obligations, it's more difficult. That's obvious and understood, but we do the best that we can. If it's, some time that we really should be spending on learning or on actually applying and taking action, but instead we're doing something that is just wasteful, this is not a good thing, okay? It's just not going to get you towards your goals. It's a simple matter of fact. Look at this. After a failed attempt at a business and many more stumbles along the way, I wrote my first book and started my YouTube channel in 2011. And I should say before that, I had the side jobs, I had the businesses, but this is where it began to accelerate, okay? In 2017, I began learning about selling on Amazon and launched my first successful product in 2018. That business runs quite passively, and as a result, it gave me more time to spend on other things. So that's what's really key, right? But this is important. Okay, why though? Why is that important? Why am I telling you this? What's important about my personal story and the factors here is that these businesses run independent of my location, independent of my customer's location, and they operate 24 hours a day. And that's really key, because today, you might live in an area that's great, and it might be Detroit 100 years ago, and things are great, but then Detroit changes, and you're kind of left in a situation in which things aren't so fantastic, but you got family, you got friends, you got connections. So you stay, and the economy gets worse. And I only use Detroit as an example. But these things, what if the economy around you is not so good? Or what if you sell to customers in a different area and the economy around them isn't so good? So having a business that is fully independent starts to look much more attractive. Right, look at this. No matter how good your skills are, there is a ceiling on your income. You can get a great raise every year, and it can even beat inflation. But there's a limit to every profession. If you invest your earnings into traditional assets, and those assets perform well, you can increase your net worth. And people should do that, right? But if you increase your time, energy, and income into a scalable business, you do not have a cap on what you can make. And you can be location independent. And I wanted to stress something here. While it is important to do investments, to have these so-called traditional investments, whether it's stocks or real estate or what have you, you got to understand what amount of money you currently have. If you have 10 million plus, then sure, you want to take that, you want to keep that. It's more about preserving wealth. But when you've got 10,000, you really need to multiply that several times over to have a big enough nest egg to be able to utilize that and then get to that level where you're 8 figures plus. Okay, this is really key. It depends on where you are. So if you are investing in something that you're going to net 7%, well, look at what you have right now. And you have to understand, is 7% going to get me to my goals? And remember what I'm saying here, inflation is always eating away at you. You can't compound enough to beat that inflation. And so this is the key. We're always chasing, we're always been running here, and we need to do our best, that's all. Okay, look at what we have. Scale. To give you an idea of the difference between traditional assets and a scalable business and the accumulation of capital, take this. If the stock market were to increase 7% per year every year, and that's not factoring in any down years, your financial advisor loves to mention that, it would take a few years to double your money, okay? You can look at that whether it's 7%, 8%, 10%, it doesn't matter. It's going to take years to be able to double your money, okay? In a scalable business like Amazon, Shopify, or others, a typical ROI, your return on investment, would be 100% in 45 days. Now, it's not always the case, but that's kind of the way it works. Okay, that's just the way it is. Now, you would not take that money and go to the beach. No, you take it and reinvest it. So you don't see that money. It's not printing money here. You reinvest it to grow your business larger. The reason that this is possible is that you as an individual can only sell so many products in one day. How many calls, emails, door knocks can you do in a single day? And how much profit is there per sale? No matter what item you're selling, is it $5 profit? Is it $100 profit? Is it $500 profit? How many of those can you do in a single day? There's always going to be a cap. This is why you need a scalable system that enables you to sell your product globally 24 hours a day. It's infinitely more efficient. And that's where we must understand. Now hang on, okay, don't get away from me yet, because I gotta talk about skills and self-sufficiency and all these things. I am simply trying to highlight the point at which we have today with inflation coming up so hard and so fast that we need to have a way to actually go beyond it and do well as a result, okay? That's the information I'm trying to give you here, okay? So just stick with me. Here we have The skills. You need to have self-sufficiency skills. I'm not denying that, okay? This is important, really important. Preferably ones that can be monetized. People will pay for the skills that they don't have. If you are an electrician, as an example, this is a skill that can be useful in any city or country. This allows you to potentially earn income as a 9-to-5 job or your own business. The limiting factor is that it isn't scalable. How many things can you fix as a handyman, as an electrician, any sort of skill like that, right? There's only so much you can do in a given day. And that's just the way it works, right? Handy skills are important, but need to be doubled up with a business model that works when you don't. That's the key. Okay, that's all I'm trying to say here. It's that when you go home and you're with your children, you need a source of income. That's my point, okay? And this is it. This is the last thing. Inflationary paradigm. With inflation being so high and likely to be an issue for the foreseeable future, we need to earn much more money, not to live a lavish life, not to have a yacht, not to have a private jet, but just to live comfortably. Those who do not will be highly reliant on social assistance programs that are provided by the government. If you can get your situation in order, do your best to learn new skills, improve existing skills, you can thrive in this brave new world. So I hope that this helps you. I hope that I brought a little bit of insight into this. It isn't something that I have talked about on a daily basis as I cover the news, but this is what I talked about in my books. This is what I talked about in my playlists. And I want you to know about this information because for a lot of people, going down the rabbit hole of information isn't going to get them to their goal. The goal might be, financial freedom. Maybe that's your goal. Maybe your goal is to buy a cottage. Maybe your goal is to simply pay off your debt. No matter what the situation is, you've got to write down your goals. You've got to see where you currently are at. So you have to assess your current situation. And then you have to start asking questions. What do I need to do to actually get there? And you just brainstorm. What are the things? What are the things I can do? What are the things I can do today? What are the things I can do next month? It all depends on your skills. It depends on your, how much time you have, and it depends on your current financial situation as well. So these activities here, I hope that you will really think about them and try to make headway. Do what you can. This is important. I just want to highlight the other aspect of I always talk about inflation, I talk about rising costs, but the solutions are really, it's not so easy. It's not just snap the fingers and make it happen. You can reduce your expenses only so much. Look at what's happening in Europe today as you see more people trying their best. But as we go into winter, are you really going to turn the heat off for that long? How many sweaters and blankets can you put on? These are the things that I talk about. I hope it was helpful. I've got information in the description below. For those, I've got the playlists on my channel. Check out the playlists as well. And that's all. If you haven't already, you definitely want to subscribe. I'll bring you more data, more details, and more solutions. Take care.